Hello, we're Athens for Everyone. My name is Adam Veale.
Tim Denson.
And we're giving you all an update of the 2016 legislative session, which just wrapped up last week.
So we're just going to go over a few of the important bills that have a pretty strong impact on Athens Clarke County.
So the first bill we're going to talk about is the Campus Carry Bill, which is HB 859. This has been a pretty controversial bill, and Athens for Everyone has spent a lot of time lobbying against the passage of this bill. Essentially, this bill would allow college students that are 21 years of age and have a concealed weapons carry permit to carry weapons on any public university in the state of Georgia. Athens for Everyone believes that guns on campus would lead to a more dangerous situation on college campuses. You know, it would restrict academic freedom, and it would endanger places like daycares on college campuses. UGA actually has a daycare on campus. We've spent a lot of time lobbying against this bill. It did pass, and it's waiting the governor's signature, but we are hoping that he'll veto the bill. But Senator Bill Cowsert and Senator Ginn voted favorably for the bill. Representative Spencer Fry voted against the bill, and Representative Quick and Williams both voted in favor of the bill.
This bill was pretty much, for the most part, partisan bill. It was Republicans voting in support of it, Democrats voting against. But like you said, very controversial, and that's when you saw a lot of people stepping up on college campuses, starting to protest here at the University of Georgia. A large protest, student government writing letters against it, faculty writing letters against it, multiple presidents, Board of Regents against this.
Athens for Everyone, when we spent time advocating against this bill, we encouraged our representatives and senators to pursue other alternatives for encouraging safety on campus, such as blue lights, which are basically places all around campus where you can call campus police and they can come to your location if there's an emergency. So we hope that the governor is going to veto this bill, but he has until May 3rd to decide. So we'll be paying close attention to the governor's office and crossing our fingers until then.
So the next one up we have is probably the second most, or I don't know, probably the first most controversial bill that we saw here. We're starting with the two most controversial probably. So this one is, went by many names. There was, I believe, 8 religious freedom bills brought into the General Assembly this year. And 2 of them, probably arguably the softest one, I would say, the Pastor Protection Act, was one that was put through and actually had, I believe, unanimous support in the House when that one passed. And it was put through. Everybody voted for it, Democrats, Republicans. When it hit the Senate, though, the Senate decided to merge it with the First Amendment Defense Act language, which was created by Senator Greg Kirk. And that language has a much larger impact. It basically protects any nonprofits, anybody who's receiving government money, it protects them from basically lawsuit. The government will not bring forth a lawsuit against them if they are acting along their religious beliefs. So the big example that was brought up is Catholic adoption services would not have to allow same-sex couples to adopt babies, and they could say that their religious beliefs were against that, then that was illegal. But there was obviously, what this really did was, that could also be called discrimination. So it really matters on which side of the coin you're looking here and how you want to phrase these things. But what we, Athens for Everyone, believes is blatantly a discriminatory bill. So this bill, as soon as that First Amendment Defense Act language got put on there, immediately blew up into this very large controversial bill. And it did pass the Senate, but then it all came down to having to go back to the House again, who had voted for it in the Pastor Protection Act. There it had a harder time passing, but it did pass. We have both of our senators, Senator Cowsert and Senator Franken, both voted for it in the Senate. When it got to the House, we had Senator Spencer Fry and Representative Spencer Fry and Representative Chuck Williams both voted against it, with Representative Regina Quick voting for it. This is another one that Athens everyone definitely lobbied really hard. A lot of people in Athens-Clarke County really spoke out against this bill, and obviously I think we were able to let Representatives Fry and Williams hear what we had against this bill. But it passed, but thankfully, is it yesterday?
Just yesterday, the governor vetoed the bill. The backlash to this legislation was similar to that seen in Indiana. There were calls for boycotting Georgia. Huge corporations were saying that they were against this legislation. Conventions and other businesses saying that they wouldn't hold conferences here in Georgia, and several movie stars and TV shows saying that they would find other places to film other than Georgia if this were signed into law. Governor Nathan Veale heard those criticisms, and thankfully he vetoed this legislation, so we don't have to worry about similar ramifications as Indiana did.
So the next one we have is what we've just been calling the crosswalk bill. Many of you guys have probably heard about this one too, HB 764. This was one that was put through by our local delegation in the House. Representative Regina Quick and Spencer Fry have been closely working on this bill going back to last year. And Senator Ginn actually was a sponsor in the Senate for it. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to help out pedestrians. Right now, cars only have to stop at a crosswalk if a person steps into the crosswalk. Of course, as soon as you step into the crosswalk, if there's traffic coming, you are putting yourself in danger. So what this bill would have done is would have said, if a person is at a crosswalk, approaching a crosswalk, the cars then have to stop so the person safely can step into the crosswalk and go across the road. This bill technically passed last year, piggybacked onto another bill dealing with motorcycles, but was vetoed by Governor Veale. His reason for vetoing it was he disagreed with the bill dealing with motorcycles. So they brought it forth again, and this time it passed the House. I believe, I want to say unanimously, it passed the House. It did. When it got to the Senate, though, on the last day of session, it was brought up in the last hour, maybe.
Yep.
Brought up very late. It was voted 28 to 15, with 15 Republicans voting against it. And that sounds like, oh, that should have won. But there was not enough yay votes to get it through. We had a lot of people in committee, including Bill Cowser was in committee and absent from the vote. I would like to assume he would have voted for it if he was there. But rest of our representatives and senators all did vote for it. But unfortunately, the bill died there in that last hour.
The legislative process is a little bit funky sometimes.
It is.
One of the most positive pieces of legislation that came out of this session is the Pursuing Justice for Rape Victims Act. This was a piece of legislation that was sponsored by Representative Scott Holcomb from the Atlanta area. Essentially, this legislation would instruct police departments to process rape kits in a timely manner so that justice could be brought for victims of sexual assault. The bill received bipartisan support in the House. It was voted out of the House favorably, and it got caught up in committee in the Senate, which drew some national criticism from Samantha Bee. Did a wonderful piece on her show, and it drew national criticism to the senator who was holding it up in the Health and Human Services Committee. Thankfully, in the final days of the session, the bill was revived under a new name, SB 304. It was originally HB 827. The language of that bill replaced SB 304, and it was voted out of the Senate. Is that correct?
It was.
It was voted out of the Senate,
yeah.
and essentially in the final hour of the legislative session, literally the final hour, it was voted favorably in the House. All of our state representatives and state senators and representatives from Athens voted in favor of this bill, and it's pending a signature by the governor. We think that it's going to be signed into law. This is a great example of when both sides of the aisle get together and work on an issue that is beneficial to the state of Georgia, and we commend Representative Holcomb for his efforts.
And also Senator Alina Parent, who actually sacrificed one of her bills so that they could reinsert. This happens sometimes, especially when it gets in. So they inserted the language of Representative Holcomb's bill into Senator Lena Parent's bill, which had already passed committee. So that was able to foster it. Didn't have to go through committee again because it was being held up at committee. I think we could say it was Senator Renee Hunterman, which you guys probably heard about. A lot of you guys contacted her and Lieutenant Governor Cagle to encourage us to go through, and we appreciate you guys doing that. This is how the stuff gets through. I mean, honestly, I don't think if the public outcry and the knowledge and that national media attention had happened. I actually read an interview where Representative Holcomb said, like, yeah, I think that was probably a key part of why this was able to get through.
Yeah.
And it's something that's needed. We're talking thousands of rape kits were going unprocessed here in Georgia, but also here in Athens, Clark County. Last year, they found 160 unprocessed rape kits going all the way back to 1993. Good news is, we actually heard from the county, and our new police chief was actually in favor and pushed for this bill. And the county has now gotten, I believe, about 75% of those rape kits are somewhere in the process of getting out. This was an important thing that needed to happen. I mean, this is a big-time issue. And the surprising thing I learned from that Samantha Bee part was that since they started doing this in other states, they have actually caught 200 and actually solved 200 rape cases.
The next bill that we're going to be talking about is kind of a fun one. It's SB 168, which establishes the official state dog. You think of Georgia, you think of the Georgia Bulldogs, and there were some legislators in the General Assembly who wanted to establish an English Bulldog as the state dog. But representative, or was it a representative or senator who led the charge to make this language change? We're going to look it up.
It got shuffled around a little bit also.
It got shuffled around, and the outcome was the establishment of the adoptable dog being the official state dog of Georgia. We think this is great. This is a great way to bring awareness to the need to adopt dogs that are in shelters instead of buying pets from pet shops and puppy mills and things like that. So the adoptable dog is, pending the governor's signature, the adoptable dog is going to become the official state dog of Georgia.
So the last bill we're going to talk about here today is actually one that doesn't affect Athens, Clark County directly, but in an overall way, it does. Because it deals with public transit, something that we are definitely working on here in Athens and in the entire state. And it's the MARTA expansion bill. This was SB 369, and what this bill did is, or will do if it's signed into law by the governor, will allow sales tax that will go directly to MARTA expansion funding. And a lot of that going towards actual expanding the rail system, which is something that's desperately needed. And this will be running through, I think it's around 2057, and it's going to bring in about $2.5 billion. That's a good chunk of change there. And I think we need some good chunk of change like that, because right now, we've ridden MARTA rail. You've probably ridden MARTA rail. It is lacking, you really can't get to the place you need to go to. There's very limited coverage there. So I'm very excited to see a more expanded use of that. This one was also passed in an interesting way. They attempted to pass it earlier on. I believe in the House, it just fell out. It did not pass through committee. It just got a little too convoluted and couldn't make it through. So on this last day, there was this Hail Mary attempt on the Senate side, in which they inserted again, did this trickery, inserted into a fireworks bill, and created some fireworks of their own there by really just surprising everybody in the Golden Dome. Nobody thought this bill had a chance, and it made it through. It made it through pretty easily, I believe. It actually passed 43-5 in the Senate and 159-4 in the House. Unfortunately, one of those no's was here from Athens, Clark County. Representative Regina Quick voted against it, but otherwise, this was a pretty bipartisan bill, and everybody else who represented Athens, Clark County voted yes, except for Senator Bill Calstert, who, again, was in committee hearing at the time, so he was exempted from having to vote there. But, I really just hope that this is going to show more hope for the entire state, including Athens, Clark County, for public transit funding. This is something that we really need here.
Yeah, I hope this bill kind of signals a culture change in the way the state thinks about transit and actually investing real money in our transit systems. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
So, well, we'll just give you a couple of summaries of how we felt the session went. Do you want to go first, Adam?
Sure. I have to say I was disappointed that we didn't get Medicaid expansion this session. That's a big issue that's of importance to Athens for everyone. It's something that we've lobbied for 2 years in a row now. The positive thing to take away from that, though, is that we've had a lot of meetings with senators and representatives from both sides of the aisle, and I think the sense that I get from our meetings is that Medicaid expansion is something that we might see progress on next year.
We got a hearing. There was a sitting
got a hearing in the Health and Human Services Committee. Next year is not an election year, so there's a little bit less pressure on folks to not have to worry about folks running against them. I remain hopeful that this is something that we're going to see in Georgia. I think that one day soon we're going to do the right thing and expand Medicaid and provide health care for hundreds of thousands of Georgians.
Just my final thoughts on the session was the session was definitely kind of concerning, I think, for me and some of the people here in Athens, for everyone, and people across the state of Georgia. We had some pretty scary stuff passed. Campus carry, First Amendment Defense Act. Thankfully, that one got vetoed. There was also some scary other bills that were being attempted, like one that would put back in place the names of Confederate soldiers and generals that had streets named after them that were changed around the Civil Rights era. During that talk, there was some talk defending Ku Klux Klan members, and that was happening in our capital. It's not where that place should be. It shouldn't be happening anywhere, but it definitely should be happening in our capital. So some scary stuff there, but again, still some highlights here. The Preserving Justice for Rape Victims Act. Not only was that just a great win because it's good legislation, it's bipartisan, but really just for the people of Georgia coming together and making that happen and feeling empowered and actually us having a voice there. And one of the things that I'm just getting more surprised at here is that I kind of take note at is that it does seem like that the party of local control, something that's very important here in the South, seems to no longer be the Republican Party. I'm really wondering, curious, if the Democratic Party is going to step up and try to really embrace that idea of local control. It's something I appreciate, as long as, usually at least, maybe not always. But with some of these other bills, the campus carry, the guns everywhere bill, the opportunity school district stuff that's going to be on the ballot coming up in November, this stuff flies in the face of local control. But I think that the ending note here is that we just have to keep fighting for good legislation, keep fighting that bad legislation, and I just hope that the people of Athens Clarke County can again just keep building their momentum with Athens for Everyone. So in 2017, we will see Medicaid expansion happen. We will see some independent redistricting commission happen for our districts, and we'll see better funding for public transit.
Like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and
sign up for the email list.
Sign up on our email list.
AthensForEveryone.com.
And we'll get you involved, and you'll be able to come lobby with us at the next legislative session.